What if I told you that a young man's entire life changed the instant he heard a single phrase, "Sell everything you have"? For many people, this would be just a common reading of the gospel, but for Saint Anthony of the Desert, these words sounded like a direct command, almost as if God had broken the silence and spoken only to him. Have you ever experienced something like that? That moment when something touches you so deeply that you know there's no turning back? What you're about to discover may surprise you, because Anthony's story doesn't begin with glory, but with restlessness, a spiritual restlessness so strong that it led him to abandon everything he knew to follow an invisible calling. Imagine the impact this has on the mind of a young man, leaving his family, his inheritance, his security, and walking towards the desert, a place where no one would choose to be except those who hunger for God. Anthony's journey unfolds like a mystery, almost as if a greater destiny awaited him among the stones and the dry wind. Stay with me until the end, because understanding his first step is to see the exact point where the transformation begins that would change the entire history of Christian spirituality. And when we observe Anthony's first step, it's impossible not to think about the times when we too have felt an inner calling, that silent impulse that asks for courage to leave something behind and follow a path we don't always understand. His story is touching because before becoming a saint, Anthony was just a young man like any of us, trying to interpret what God was asking. It is at this point that the narrative ceases to be merely historical and begins to speak to our own lives in an almost intimate way. If this topic resonates with you, leave a comment below about what has touched you the most so far. This exchange helps create a space where faith is strengthened through sharing. And if this story has already sparked something in you, leave a like. This shows YouTube that this type of content deserves to reach more people who are also seeking meaning, faith, and direction. And of course, if you want to journey with me through other profound stories like this one, subscribe to the channel. Your participation here is what makes this work grow and continue reaching those who need to hear these messages. Now, continuing in that same vein, I want to take you even deeper into this journey. And when Anton finally decides to abandon everything, it's not just an external act, it's an internal rupture so profound it seems to tear his soul apart. He doesn't just give up his possessions, but his own old identity, as if understanding that certain transformations only happen when we have the courage to let go of what we've always been to discover what we can become. It is in this radical movement that his journey gains an almost symbolic weight. While the world sought security, Anton sought truth. His first retreat in an abandoned tomb reveals the brutal contrast between the absolute silence of the desert and the deafening noise that existed within him. And perhaps that's where the story touches us most, because we have all faced moments when the exterior seems tranquil, but the interior is a battlefield. The desert is not just a physical place. It is a metaphor for the restless soul, for the mind that tries to find meaning amidst doubts, fears, and silent revelations. Anthony begins to confront his own emotional inner workings, understanding that holiness is not born from the absence of struggle, but from the courage to remain present in it. The spiritual struggle for Anthony is not a myth. It is the raw revelation of a hidden truth that we all face in different forms, the combat between who we are and who we can become. The spiritual attacks that initially manifested as noises and visions soon took on an even more brutal form, revealing a hidden truth about the intensity of the battle Anthony faced. One episode has resonated for centuries. One night, while praying in complete silence, he was surprised by forces that not only tormented him, but physically attacked him. Accounts describe violent blows, impacts that echoed through the cave and left his body so wounded that it seemed impossible for a man to survive. When some monks found him, Anthony lay fallen, almost lifeless, like someone who had been beaten by something none of them could comprehend.
But it is precisely here that his journey reveals something extraordinary. Upon regaining consciousness, Anthony does not ask for help, does not complain, does not show fear. On the contrary, as soon as he manages to get up, he insists on returning to the desert, even knowing that danger awaited him. It is at this moment that he utters a phrase that has crossed centuries as a symbol of courage and unwavering mentality. "Here I am, Anthony. I will not run away." This decision is not merely stubbornness, it is the revelation of a rare inner strength, a profound transformation that impels him to confront evil not with violence, but with spiritual firmness. What happens after this attack completely changes the impact of his spiritual journey. After that brutal attack, something begins to change within Anthony, as if the darkness had given way to a light he had never experienced before. It's curious how, in spiritual life, moments of profound downfall often precede a powerful revelation, almost as if God awaits the moment when the soul is most naked to touch the heart with greater force. And with Anthony, it was no different. In the silence of the desert, when his flesh still bore the marks of the confrontation, he begins to experience something that defies any logical explanation. Visions that are not born of imagination, but of a presence so real that it transforms the very atmosphere around him. The accounts describe how, at certain moments, Anthony perceived Christ near him, not just as an image, but as living consolation. It was as if, after traversing the darkest recesses of the soul, he finally found the hidden truth that sustained his entire journey. God had never left him alone. From these experiences, Anthony's mindset changes. He ceases to be merely a man who resists evil and becomes someone enlightened, someone who understands that darkness does not have the last word. His faith ceases to be just combat and becomes encounter, revelation, inner impact. These mystical experiences transform Anthony into something no one imagined, a spiritual master for the entire desert. As time passed, something unexpected began to happen. Antao's silence became so powerful that people from all over began to cross the desert just to find him. It was as if the inner transformation he had undergone created an invisible force capable of attracting those who also sought answers, healing, direction. Simple men, restless young people, confused leaders, all knocked on his stone door, wanting to understand the hidden truth that sustained his peace. And Antao, who had fled the world to live in hiding, now finds himself at the center of a journey he never planned. A journey where his own experience becomes a light for those who arrive lost. The crowd sought him not only for the miracles attributed to him, but for the wisdom that sprang from silence. He taught that the most difficult battle does not take place outside, but within the soul. That discipline is what sustains faith when the whole world seems unstable. That the desert is not solitude, but an encounter. And each of his words carried impact because it came from someone who had lived through everything he taught. It is at this point that Anthony ceases to be merely a hermit and becomes the spiritual father of an entire generation. As the years passed, Anthony was no longer just a master of the desert. He was a spiritual giant whose presence seemed to shape the very environment around him. When his death approached, it came not with fear, but with a serenity that impressed those who accompanied him. It was as if he had already overcome every possible inner battle and was now simply taking another step on this journey that began with a silent calling. And in that final moment, many report that a profound peace filled the cave, as if the desert itself had paused to honor him. After his departure, numerous testimonies of miracles, healings, and advice he supposedly offered to people in dreams or moments of despair began to emerge. His life, lived far from the world, ended up transforming the entire world. This is how Anthony became the father of monasticism, the man who showed that true courage is born from confronting one's own soul, and that silence, when deeply accepted, reveals more than 1,000 words. Now, I want to delve even deeper into this subject because understanding his legacy is touching upon a truth that transcends centuries and remains alive today. And if you've made it this far, I can sense that the story of St. Anthony has touched something within you. Perhaps a desire for inner silence, perhaps the courage to face unseen battles, perhaps just that feeling that there is a greater force guiding every step of our journey. So, if you want to show me that you walked with me to the end, leave a comment below. I'm with you until the end. It's simple. but it creates a real connection between your experience and this space we're building together. If this video brought you clarity, peace, or a new way of looking at your own life, please leave a like. This helps YouTube understand that this type of content deserves to reach more people who are also seeking meaning, faith, and direction. And of course, if you want to continue exploring profound stories like this one, full of spiritual revelations and true humanity, subscribe to the channel. That's what keeps this journey alive. There's a video over here that perfectly complements what we experienced today. Click on it and continue watching it with me.